Hello and welcome to the webinar regarding smoke alarms, best practice law and risk management. This is Stacey Holt speaking. As a reference for PME system users, please refer to Chapter 3.3.15 for more information if required after the webinar. Please also ensure that you contact me if required for more support or information as part of membership services. So our focus during this webinar is on what the smoke alarm laws are in Queensland for tenancy, of course being rental properties, and also what are the landlord and tenant obligations, and also focusing on our agency risk. Now it's been a requirement in Queensland for many years now, since July 1, 2007, for smoke alarms, minimum numbers to be installed in all residential properties in Queensland. Now, that also includes owner-occupier, so every house and unit in Queensland must have a minimum number of smoke alarms in their property. I must mention at this point also the Queensland Fire and Rescue website, which comes up shortly in this webinar. The link has some really good diagrams in relation to locations, so if you need more assistance on that, let me know, or just visit the Fire website, which I'll display very shortly. Now, generally speaking though, smoke alarms must be installed outside all sleeping areas. Also if there's double story, there's requirements. If there's no sleeping area downstairs, there's still a requirement for a smoke alarm to be installed on the other story downstairs to the nearest point of evacuation. So again, I stress the diagrams that are available to all of us from Queensland Fire and Rescue Service are really vital to assist you and the landlord as well in understanding what the requirements are. We obviously can't rent a rental property without smoke alarms these days, given the law has been in for many years, since July 2007. So some of the legislative requirements are, of course, smoke alarms must be in working order at all times. It, of course, would be an extremely emergency, urgent repair in the event that we become aware as agents that the smoke alarm is no longer working. Now, if it's a battery issue, which I'll just touch on now, but basically tenants are responsible during the tenancy for batteries. Okay, so if the smoke alarm is flat or almost flat, it should never become flat obviously because it's inoperational and therefore a risk, and it's also illegal for a smoke alarm not to be working. But a tenant responsibility during tenancy under the Fire and Rescue Service Act, which is where this legislation comes from. So it's a tenant responsibility during tenancy to change the batteries of all the alarms or any of the alarms. Now, landlords are required in relation to cleaning and testing. They're required to have any of the smoke alarms in their rental property cleaned and tested and batteries replaced if they're needed at that time. That's required to be done within 30 days prior to the start of a tenancy or a renewal, or I should say renewal. So let me be clear on that again. Landlord legal obligations under the Fire and Rescue Service Act of Queensland requires that all smoke alarms in their rental property must be cleaned and tested, batteries replaced if needed, within 30 days prior to the tenancy commencing, including a tenancy renewal. Now that could be the day before the tenancy is renewed or starts. It could be 28 days ago, it could be 10 days ago. It's within 30 days prior to the start or renewal of a new agreement. Every lessor must ensure, as we've touched on already, that the minimum number are installed. Now these could be the minimum requirement, which is the 9-volt battery operated alarm, or there's 10-year lithium battery operated or hardwire alarms. Any property built after 97 or has had substantial renovations since 1997 have been required to have hardwire alarms. But properties prior to that, which of course are a majority, so to speak, of rental property, properties prior to 1997 that have not been substantially renovated, 9-volt battery operated or 10-year lithium. We'd of course recommend as much as possible to our owners the medium, I guess, which is the 10-year lithium battery there, obviously better for a risk management perspective. Now, in relation to my comment a few moments ago about the positioning, there's some really good information about the number of positioning and types of alarms on the fire.qld.gov.au website. really recommend you get your hands on that. And of course, if you need further support as part of membership and PME system support, you'll simply just email me if you require any more information there. So let's just pick up on some other key points here. We must be non-negotiable. There's no question. The main reason is risk, but the second one, of course, is it's law. But owners, it has to be done within this time period. Now, I draw your attention on the screen right now to the last two lines. Advise lessors that the agency can arrange, it should say, forgive me, that the agency can arrange suitable contractors. Of course, we can't do it. We're professional rental managers. We don't test, check or do any other service other than managed tenancy. It's a huge risk to your business if you ever undertake something more than a visual inspection. Please, I urge you to get more advice if you need to, if ever you have entertained or you are doing the testing. Please don't do it. It's a huge risk and liability to your business. Now, the testing and cleaning of alarms does not need a qualification per se, except for hardwired, because that's electrical. But the 9-volt and the 10-year lithium can be done by anyone but not us. Okay? Owners wishing to carry out the requirements themselves. Look, it's a shame when they want to do this, but they can do it. As I've said earlier, that there's no requirement for a trade or qualification to do it. So ensure the instructions are in writing from the landlord that they wish to undertake it, or confirm it in writing. If it's not in writing, we know it doesn't exist. Ensure that in that written communication we advise them that it's not recommended. Now, I've got, as part of PME system, a couple of best practice letters, particularly one that covers just a letter that says owner wishing to attend to their own maintenance. Now, you could use that template and just add smoke alarms or whatever that you need there, or again contact me if need. But I do have a template in the maintenance folder, which I will show you in a moment online, so you're clear as to where it is. But yes, owners can do it, but look, from a risk perspective, we've got to make sure it's in writing, and also you know, to have done the best we can do. Also in writing is, please, we do not recommend that you undertake such a duty. The owner wants someone that we don't use, so Uncle Charlie, or, you know, someone that we don't use as a contractor. Again, advise the owner in writing or confirm their instruction in writing. And basically, forgive me, again, you're reinforcing the recommendation not to do it themselves, but also requesting or recommending, I should probably say, that we have suitable contractors that can carry out this for you. Okay, so owners wishing to do it themselves, or owners wishing for another person to carry it out. Now, in the event of another person that we don't use or don't know, like Uncle Charlie or, you know, Billy's business, or, you know, whoever they are, but we don't use them, don't know them, the owner prefers them. If the owner wants you to appoint Uncle Charlie or Billy, don't. Okay, firstly, mainly don't unless you've got a contractor appointment form with them. If and more importantly, as part of the contract appointment form best practice system that we have in business these days, we obviously would require their public liability insurance details. Now, if the person that the owner wants you to appoint does not have those details and or won't complete the form, please do not do a work order for them. Pass the duty on to the owner. We can pay the account. That's a purely administration function. But please do not do a work order to someone that you do not have a contractor appointment form and do not have public liability insurance details on file that are current. We know that tenants have an obligation regarding batteries, but they have an obligation, of course, also to make us aware that if any alarms are not working, to let us know. And again, I stress it's an emergency repair. Have a look at Standard Term 30 of the tenancy agreement contract. If you need further clarification, of course, I know that you listening to this webinar now would know already that attending to a smoke alarm not working is an emergency. But also, just to give you added value and benefit of education, a useful tip is also, you know, to understand fully what an emergency repair is. So Standard Term 30 of the tenancy agreement contract is a very good quick reference which quotes Section 214 of the RTRA Act, which of course is the definition of an emergency repair. So what about the tenant cleaning and testing? Well, The tenant's responsible for cleaning and testing at least once in a 12-month period. However, this only applies to tenancies that are 12 months or longer. So that's a fixed term, or a periodic that is continuing and it's gone for more than 12 months. So if a tenancy is less than 12 months, such as 6 months, which is commonly the way in most situations, and the tenancy is renewed, the lessor is responsible still at renewal. So to be clear, if a tenant was only on a 6-month agreement, they have no obligation to clean and test the alarm, other than, of course, the fact of their own duty of care to themselves and their families to save lives. But under the Queensland Fire and Rescue Service Act, the tenant's only required to clean and test if the tenancy is 12 months or longer, so that is a fixed term, or a periodic tenancy. If it's found that the tenant, has removed the battery or the alarm, it of course is a very significant breach, and it's a breach of Standard Term 21(2)A of the Tenancy Agreement Contract, using the premises for an illegal purpose. Now, Standard Term 21(2)A, again, you might want to reference hands-on after this webinar. Standard Term 21(2)A is where it says that the tenant, of course, is breaching the contract if they use the premises for an illegal purpose. Now, they are using the premises for an illegal purpose under the Fire and Rescue Act. As part of PME system, of course, you've got a best practice template online in relation to completion of that significant breach. Now, most agencies use either ADL or RealWorks forms, and as part of your service that ADL or RealWorks give you, they provide special terms as part of your tenancy agreement. So Standard Term 21 is a standard term in all agreements. However, subject to what your business uses, so RealWorks or ADL, you have special terms. So my point being, if you had to breach a tenant for the smoke alarm situation where they've rendered it ineffective and they've taken batteries out or the alarm down, please, I recommend strongly that you breach them for Standard Term 21(2)A plus any special term that you can reference as part of your agency agreement. Now, it's really important to understand why I'm recommending this. The RTRA Act sets out only 4 things that are significant breaches, and another webinar will be available in relation to what these significant breaches are. But there are only 4 breaches that are classed as what's called significant under the RTRA Act. There's more information in the PME system, by the way, in the manual about significant breaches if you'd like to have a read of that prior to viewing the webinar. But regardless, there are 4 matters that are classed legally as significant breaches, and one of those 4 matters is if a tenant breaches for an illegal use of the premises. So what that really means is, in the event the tenant's given a breach significant for this issue of smoke alarm, what it means is we can re-inspect within 14 days of the breach notice expiring. So let's put that in perspective. Let's say I gave the tenant a breach notice, random dates, but the breach notice expires on the 9th of June. We could, within 14 days of the expiry of the breach on the 9th of June, issue a 24-hour entry notice to go back and re-inspect to make sure the significant breach has been remedied. Now, given the serious nature of safety and risk when it comes to smoke alarms, I strongly recommend that members, of course, do take that step to make sure that the property is safe to live in and the tenant has done the right thing and remedied the breach. So some agents, which is good practice I feel, when you actually give the breach to the tenant, you also give the Form 9 of the 24-hour notice. So in my story example, I said to you that the breach expired on the 9th of June. Well, if I gave that breach today for it to expire on the 9th of June, what a lot of agents are doing, which I think is really good, is when I give the breach notice, I also give you the 24-hour notice. I'm obviously going to give you a lot more time because I give you that entry notice to actually re-inspect on the 10th of June, so the day after the expiry of the breach, which of course can be done, whereas others choose to breach expires and then give 24 hours notice within the 14-day period of that notice expiring. A couple of things I just want to finish off the webinar is making sure I'm live online at the moment. I'm just at my administration site, but this is very similar, or forgive me, this is actually identical to what you would see as a PME system user online. So the PME best practice forms, I'm just clicking there. So when you go to PME system online, the best practice forms, as you know, there's quite a few, a couple of hundred there or so. Maintenance and inspections, I'm just clicking on that for now. And the current suite of maintenance and inspection forms are right here. And here's the one I was talking about earlier. Lessor wishing to undertake own maintenance, you just download that and edit as you see, as you need. Lessor wishing to use own contractors for maintenance. So that's what I was referring to now. So you've got access, obviously, as a PME system member to this online. So the PME best practice forms is where you would go. The PME manual, of course, the latest version. Remembering that, of course, versions are updated. We're currently at time of recording this webinar. We're up to version 1.4, but of course, at the time of you listening to this webinar, just double check what version we're up to online. I do notify members in the member update. So PME version 1.4 online. Now, we're just going to, this is exactly what you would do. Strangely enough, when you press to open it, it asks you to save, but then it goes to open. So we're now looking, I'll just let that digest on your screen. We're now, of course, looking at the PME system manual. Now, I mentioned that at the beginning of this webinar that you would, if you wanted to, if you needed to at any time, go to paragraph 3.3.15. Now, as you see what I just did, I've just gone find 3.3.5. And of course, one of the beauties of Easy Electronic, it takes you to the contents. No, that's not what I need. Well, it is, but I want more information. So you just keep finding. Here we go. So this is where you have the written content of what I've talked about as well. So another, you could always word search and whatever you need. So you could have typed in smoke alarms and you would have found that as well. But significant breaches, as I mentioned during the webinar as well. Now, significant breaches named quite a bit in the PME manual. So it'll just be a process of going through, which very easily you'll see that I just did it. What is a significant breach? Well, there's the 4. And of course, the one I'm focusing in today's study is using the premises for an illegal purpose. Thanks for listening to the webinar on smoke alarms. This is Stacey Holt, and of course, remember, as part of membership and PME support, I'm only an email away. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again very soon.